What's going on, y'all? So listen. What's going on, y'all? So we are back again for a brand new season of Power Book 2 Ghosts. Girl, I had to think about it for a second. This is season 3, episode 1, Your Perception, Your Reality. Girl, y'all been beating down my door. You gonna write it? You gonna review it? You gonna review it? Of course I was gonna review it. I already told y'all. Y'all know I can't leave y'all hanging. I can't leave myself hanging either. Anyway, so we get up into the episode, and truth be told, I really hope I remember a lot of the stuff that happened and what I feel like I'm going to do, because I was going to do it prior, but then I got caught up in the whole situation with looking at Swarm and other stuff, trying to catch up on that. So I didn't get a chance to go rewatch season 2. But for the most part, I think I got it down pat. I just know Zeke dead and that professor dead, and I'm pretty sure we still got that the annoying detective. And I'm not talking about Blanc, I'm talking about the white one. Sack's still up in the building, and I just don't understand why, but hey, he just gonna be a thorn in our side. But anyway, let's just get up into the episode, because the way this episode started off, I said, oh, that's how we doing this? That's how we doing this? They said, yeah, girl, that's how we doing this. It was a little much. It was a little much, because I said, oh, if it just felt a little campy, like one of those action thriller movies that, you know, the jury heist and let's just cut off people's limbs and stuff. I said, wait a minute, this is a little much. Did I just turn to Tomb Raider or something? What is happening? So basically, remember last season, I think it was Tyreek needing some money or whatever for his legal fees or something that was going on. I can't remember per se. That's not the issue. The fact of the matter is, he took a ring from Mecca's place, right? He gave it to Davis. And basically, Davis was supposed to use that to cover all the bills or whatever he had to do or whatever. Davis wound up giving it to this girl, you know, and she took it to this pawn shop. Not a pawn shop. He was like a jeweler, curator type of person or whatever, because next thing you know, we see it being auctioned off. And I mean, these are the big spenders, because I believe the auction started like around $2 million or $3 million. I said, dang, not 100,000, because I looked at it. It's a pure diamond, okay? It's like a blue diamond, and I'm like, you could at least started off like 100,000. You mean it started off in the millions? You said, no, we know our worth, okay? I said, all right, this is a little bit too rich for my blood. And then we see all these people, you know, going back and forth, this, but then we see this black lady with this short hair looking cute as ever. She comes sit down and she look real badass with it. I said, who you supposed to be, girlfriend? And she just sat there looking at the people going back and forth. And it became, because at one point when the auction started, auction, okay, let me get my words together. When it first started, everybody and their mama put their little paddles up. I said, oh, so all of y'all got money like that up in this? And they said, girl, yeah, we do. And then it got up to like $5.5 million. I said, oh, no. It was between, I think she was an Indian woman and this white man, right? The white man got it, okay? So he leaves out, and he going out with his little girlfriend, and he winds up proposing to her with the ring. I said, all right. They say diamonds are forever, but is the relationship forever? I don't know. I'm not trying to be cheap. That probably be the one thing that I do splurge on. But I just feel like that's a little bit much to be spending on a ring to give to somebody for an engagement. Girl, you ain't getting no wedding ring, and you ain't getting nothing else. That's $5.5 million on your hand right there. Baby mama pulled up with her 2 goons, her 2 security, her 2 guys, and said, that's a cute ring, but you need to take that thing off because it belongs to me. And see, this is where the white boys messed up. He was like, what the hell are you talking about? Get the fuck away from me and all that stuff. Y'all need to go. And he just got real rude with it. Because truth be told, granted, she came up there and said, give me my stuff. But she wasn't rude with it. Y'all got rude. At least he did. Telling them to get the hell on and all this stuff. And, you know, I'm finna call the cops or whatever. Baby, when her security guard or her henchman or whatever said, why must you Pale Americans be so rude? Baby. Call them people Go on TikTok. There are some people that have videos literally listing all of the different names that they have called white people to offend them. And let me just tell you this. I cracked up because I had never heard or never thought to put some of those words together. Mayonnaise warriors. I said, wait a minute, hold on. We're not gonna do this. We're not gonna do this. But next thing you know, the guards, they took him to the side or whatever, and then they pulled her to the side, and then old girl took her hand like this, and then old boy pulled out this long ass knife / machete, and she just chopped. I said, hold up. I said, what am I looking at? Candyman? Candy Woman? What's going on? Because she cut her whole hand off. And she's screaming. She ain't screaming enough for me because, baby, let me just tell you this. She was screaming too much. She was screaming a little bit much because, baby, I would have passed out. And I feel like it was just the adrenaline. And if it was the adrenaline that just had me keep on going, baby, I would have looked at my arm handless, and then I would have passed the fuck out. I don't know if they killed her or she just died or just fainted from the pain because we ain't hit her no more at one point because she was calling for her man. They wound up shooting that man. All in the same time, she took that hand, took the ring off, threw the hand. I said, wow, the disrespect. She said, I don't care. I came for what belongs to me because the diamond belongs to me. She put that thing on her hand and they walked away after they shot old boy. I said, well, damn. All right, who is you? Meanwhile, we get over there to Stansfield and we see Effie. She's still kicking it with Tariq. Come to find out, they've been kicking it all summer. She did transfer over there to Stansfield, and she was having a little reservations because, you know, she's just like, I know that I said I was going to transfer over here to be closer and be with you, but I don't want to be known on campus as just Tariq's girlfriend. And he's like, what's wrong with that? Her whole thing is she don't want to lose her identity and lose who she is. And he said, I know who you are, you know who you are, and I'm not trying to change that. I did feel a little bad, just slightly, at him looking at all the throwback pictures of, you know, Lil Raina, Lil Jazz, and, you know, him and the grandmama, him and Lauren. I said, oh. And then while they up there having their little conversation, here comes Brayden's mama and sister. Now, let me just tell you this. Brayden mama, Weston or not, a known name or not, baby, you so lucky. You so lucky that boy took a bullet, meaning he took the fall for Tariq, because I swear if it was anybody else, I would have cussed your ass out and I would have popped you. You would have had to sue me because what you not going to do is disrespect me. I really hate the fact that we be seeing this stuff on TV because I'm pretty sure it goes down like this, where these white people that got these names or whatever, they throw that around to get their weight around or whatever. You know, my name is on here and this is the Weston Dorman. We always had this room and we got our name out here, and you will see that when you're walking out. You need to hurry up and get out and all this stuff. I said, excuse me. First of all, why you mad at her or him? Because he ain't make your son do what he did, okay? And even the daughter was pissed off at the mama. Like, girl, calm the hell down. Y'all take y'all time, okay? Meanwhile, we get over there with Brayden. Brayden got to work at the daddy firm with Trace, okay? Trace is a kiss ass. Trace want to be like his daddy, but he also is a screw up himself. Brayden don't want to be there. The daddy basically making him be there because, you know, he's been expelled from Stansfield and he's trying to restore the Weston name and try to get him back into Stansfield. And, you know, basically this is a family company because his uncle works there and his uncle is trying to take him under his wing and, you know, telling him how he can make money legally and telling him that course correct stuff was a good idea, but it was dumb of him to get on that stand and to admit to it or whatever, even though it wasn't his idea, it was Tariq's idea, you know, the course correct, but all right. And he was like, you can do that stuff legally and you can make 10 times as much money legally. And he said, listen, the thing of it is, I wasn't doing that to make money. I just like the rush at the fact that I was good at something. And he was like, that's what I get when I'm here. And I said, well, that's fine because that's your rush. That's your goodness. That's how you get your thing down. That don't mean that's how he gonna get down and he gonna feel the same way. You know what I'm saying? It's different. Everybody is different. And I feel like it's okay. I'm so glad I didn't grow up in a family where, you know, they just, you're expected to go into the family business and you can't make choices on your own. And that's what it seemed like is going on with Brayden and his family. And you gotta be in the family business and you gotta carry on the Weston name and you gotta do this and do that. No, let me be my own person. Whether I mess up or do good, let me be my own person. He got this girl named Kiki that works there. I guess she one of the good people, one of the best people on staff or whatever, and he's supposed to be shadowing her. Baby, when Kiki, a black girl, because you know sometimes I seen a white girl named Kiki, okay, as a nickname or whatever. It's rare, but it happens. So when she came up in there, I was like, oh, all right. Brayden was smitten already. I said, oh, so now this is your motivations to actually stay there because, you know, we got something to look at. We got something to, you know, try to get on her good side because we want to get in her. I said, oh, okay, Brayden. We saw it all through, and she did too. Meanwhile, we get over there to the Tejada household, baby. Tejada. Baby, Monet is sitting there like this. Looking at paternity court. I said, oh, baby, you looking at TV during the day. You ain't done nothing. It look like you been sitting there for a couple of days. And you still look decent, but you look worn down. You look tired. You look stressed. And you look grief-ridden. I said, oh, that's so sad. That's so sad. Next thing you know, Davis bring his ass up in there basically telling them that, you know, Mecca, he left his apartment, his penthouse apartment to Zeke, since that Zeke is his son or whatever. But since Zeke is dead and Zeke ain't had no will, it automatically goes over there to you know, what's her name, Monet, since Monet was his mama. And so she was like, a penthouse? This nigga got cash and cars or whatever, and you want to give me a penthouse? Don't that go to me too, since, you know, Zeke ain't here, he ain't had no will? He said technically yes, but since he was an informant with the CIA or whatever these government agencies, they holding that up and they done froze all that stuff, and you don't need to be trying to get that right now because then it's going to put a big ass target on your back. And she was like, man, get the hell up out of here, all right? You know? What you need to be doing is trying to tell me who the fuck did this to my son. I said, the man right there in front of your face. And let me tell you something. When Davis left, he what's his name, Lorenzo, he trying to say what we gonna do with the penthouse because he don't want to be staying up in no other nigga's penthouse. I said, first of all, you weren't never gonna be up in there because that's what he was about to say. She cut that off real quick, and she told Drew and Kane that they can go stay there until she sell it, and they was fine with it. But my whole thing is this, Mr. Lorenzo, if I was you, I would have just shut the hell up. You getting all up in your feelings because she's snapping off at you. And I'm like, can't you see this lady is grieving? And knowing the fact that you know that you the one that is the cause of her grief because you took her son out acting foolish, okay, because you was moving too soon when nobody told you to, and you got the wrong person, you done killed that boy. Baby, let me tell you something. You better sit there and just eat your food and take it, okay? You know, I understand what's going on, but you ain't gonna be talking to me like this. I talk to you however the fuck it is I want to talk to you. I was here for Monet saying that. Usually I be like, damn, Monet, you need to calm down. You being real rude. You being real ass rude. But in this moment, I was like, go ahead and talk to him like that because he need that. Because he played your ass. He the one that took your son away. He's the one that got you sitting here looking all meaner than you already are, okay? And I said, how could you live with yourself knowing that you did this? Baby, I have to just come clean and take the consequences because the conscience that I have will not let me live that down, all right? It will be done with. You will probably put a bullet in my head, but at least I die with a clean conscience, okay? Like, that's just how I feel. Then Diane tried to come over there and get her some food, and of course, Monet is snapping on her. I don't want no food and all this stuff. Baby, I thought she was about to snap on her for walking in front of her TV, okay? Because she did say, I'm about to look at my whole, my shows. I said, what? She is looking at a paternity court freaking marathon. That's what it seemed like. Diane gets upset and then her feelings gonna break the freaking plate up in the sink. And then the daddy was like, calm down. She was like, I just don't understand how come she mad at me. Okay, all I did was tell Zeke that she was his mama. I mean, that's the truth. I said, Diane, first of all, your mama is grieving. Second of all, we know that you didn't do nothing to her to cause the death of Zeke, meaning that you didn't pull the trigger and you didn't take his life. But again, she's grieving. And third of all, she was pissed off with you prior to this because of what you did in the way that you did it. And that's the thing that you don't understand. Yeah, you told the boy that he was her son or whatever, but you did that shit to shame her. You did that shit to put her on blast, and you did it in front of everybody with cruel intentions, okay? And so therefore, she not dumb. So I don't understand why you still here trying to play dumb and thinking that she's supposed to be okay with you now just because she grieving the loss of her son and she's supposed to just let that slide. No, bitch, I'm still mad at you. That's how she is. She said, I'm gonna fuck you up, bitch. Y'all remember that? That was one of the best scenes. Well, she threw that birth certificate down, and Zeke dumbass. Oh, I'm gonna miss Zeke, because Zeke, huh? Mama, Monet, what he talking? What's she talking about, Monet? You my mom? You my mom? What? I said, boy, that's your mammy, okay? God damn. 1 + 1 = 2. In Zeke's case, it equals 7. It skipped all of that. It equals 7, you know? And then the daddy want to tell her, you can go to Stansfield. I said, for what? For what? Keep your little hot ass over here, okay? Don't go up there trying to disrupt what Tariq and Effie got going on right about now. No, you ain't built for that. You ain't built for that. The daddy just sucking up to her like, you know, I wanted you to go here, but now you can go there. We'll give you a full ride. You'll have to come up with the rest of the books and stuff, whatever. But, you know, we got room and board and you can stay up there and everything. And I'm just like, where you getting at, Poppy? I don't know. Something ain't right. I don't trust Lorenzo. Lorenzo, you a dirty dog, okay? We could have been cool, but see, you know, you did her wrong. You did her wrong. The way that lady held you down and held the family down, and your jealousy came through when you killed her son. And truth be told, I don't feel like Lorenzo never really liked Zeke in the first place because Zeke was always around anyway. And he just didn't even give me that feeling like he liked Zeke, even when he thought Zeke was just his nephew, you know? And it was just, that relationship was weird. Maybe I was just thinking too much, but that's how I felt. So then we get to see Councilman Tate. Baby, I honestly don't want to see him this season because at this point, all right, truth be told, I'm kind of glad that they didn't give him a spinoff because I'm going to tell y'all for sure that I wouldn't have reviewed it because I just don't find him that interesting or whatever. But and because I don't like him. So I don't want to get to know a different side of him or whatever. But I will say when he needs to come in handy, he'll come in handy. And he came in handy just this moment. He was sitting down there, looked like at a little country club or whatever, talking to the dean, one of the deans of Stanfield, right? And basically, the dean is trying to get him to stay on, you know, even though his little re-election or his election or whatever that he was trying to do, it didn't come through. But he still got power. He still got a little weight. And the dean still want to have him associated with the school. And so, you know, he was thinking about it. But next thing you know, Tariq shows up. And he was just like, you know, he needed to talk to the dean for the fact that he has not gotten his housing assignment and school is about to start. And the dean is like, well, we'll look into it. And he was like, well, I need you to go ahead and do something about it now because at this moment, I have nowhere to stay. And so the dean just said straight up, the people don't feel comfortable with you up in this school right about now. And we got over 1,000 alumni that really want your ass out of here. Okay. So, you know, it's really out of my hand. But see, this is where Rashad Tate comes in and was basically like, so y'all trying to discriminate against this young black man who went to the social justice system and who was proven that he had nothing to do with this course correct type of situation, because that's what he told him. He said, listen, I wasn't found guilty of that, baby. Dude said just because you wasn't found guilty don't mean that you ain't had nothing to do with it, that you not guilty. I said, oh, so that's what we gonna do? That's what we gonna do? That's why Tay had to step up and be like, nah, bruh, we not finna do that. You not finna do this to this young black man. And you know, he threw that around. He threw them buzzwords around or whatever, trying to make him, he played the race card. Okay, try to make him feel bad, try to make him embarrassing and uncomfortable because people started looking because he raising his voice about it. And like Councilman Tate said, you know, it's all Black Lives Matter until it's time to be Black Lives Matter. I said, I know that's the right. I know that's right. Wow, Tate, I actually liked you on that one. And you know, dude was like, okay, well, I'll look into it, I'll get it done, but just let you know right here, Tariq, this your last chance. And I said, that's fair. That's fair because Tariq, you ain't been nothing but hell on wheels ever since you got to Stansfield. It is what it is, okay? And so Tariq was like, you know, you did that out the kindness of your heart, and I'm pretty sure that you don't do stuff out the kindness of your heart. So I'm pretty sure now that you want a favor. He said, bingo. I said, I knew it. I knew it. But you know what? I probably would have did the same thing that Tate did. You do for me, scratch my back, I scratch yours, okay? You know, moving on from that, girl, Tariq was outside, and while Simon Stern ex-fiance, or I should say ex-husband, he wound up coming up against him and was basically like, so you basically tricked me. And I said, how he trick you? He said something to the fact that he was deceived or misled about what he was doing, you know, because, you know, it came out that, you know, the course correct, the whole trial or whatever, it was in public news and all of that stuff. So everybody knows about it and the whole drug operation and all that stuff. And so at this point, he like, what you need to do, you're going to tarnish my name because now my name is connected with this. And what you need to do is give me a whole bunch of cash. He is suffering right about now because him and I was about to say Howard Stern. Him and Simon, they got divorced. Okay, as he said, Daddy Warbucks. He got divorced, or I should say, Daddy Warbucks. Okay, because that's what he was using him for. But Daddy Stern, he basically fucked him in the divorce, just like Ashley got fucked over in that by Michael. Girl, I'm so sorry. That's all I was thinking. Cause man, he said the prenup didn't do nothing for him. I said, see, this is what y'all get. Y'all be marrying these rich people and thinking y'all gonna get something. Who is y'all lawyer? Y'all probably using the person's lawyer that did his stuff. And of course they gonna be on their side. So come on. And he basically was like, you gonna have to give me some money. And if you don't give me no money, and tell me what's good and keep this thing flowing, you got 7 days, so I'm gonna go to the NYPD. I said, Tariq, put a bullet in his head right now. Tariq is trying to stay out of trouble, and I want him to put a bullet in the man's head. Because I just hated the way he did that. I just knew it was gonna come back on him. Like, you cannot work with this man. I just don't trust him, okay? Moving on from that, out there at the penthouse, or I should say up there at the penthouse, you get Drew and his boy Emmett, he come through, and they was like, wait a minute. He said, I thought you supposed to be Christian in the penthouse, but what is all of this? Baby, it's hoes, it's niggas, it's everything, the music blaring and everything. And basically what happened is, what's his name? Kane got all the people up there because he's basically trying to woo a new connect. And the connect, I think his name was Kale or something, or Kale, something like that. Either way. He used to work for Lorenzo, and I believe like Lorenzo kind of, you know, brought him up. And so that's why he's trying to get a connect with him, but dude ain't trying to work with him. You know, first of all, he don't trust him for the fact that y'all up here in a dead man's penthouse just partying it up or whatever. And he said, you know, after everything that went down, what I want is to get, what'd he say? I give y'all the product, you give me cash back all the time, and then I'll take 60% of the profit. I said, excuse me? Me and Kane said, nigga, no. What are you talking about? You know, after the way Lorenzo helped you, bring you in and all that, he said, I don't owe Lorenzo shit. Okay, and I don't trust you to hire the niggas. I said, ooh, all right. You know, they was about to get into it. Drew said, what about 30%? He said, hell no. And I'm pretty sure I'm the only one that got an offer for you. He said 60% of the profit seems like more than nothing of the profit, because I don't see nobody else up in here trying to offer you nothing. Because it wasn't nobody else. They was just wooing him. And then he tried to get at them and say, you know what, this ain't gonna work, but how your fine ass mama doing? I said, shit. They was about to throw blows right then and there. I said, well, that's gone. Next thing you know, what we got going on, girl? My face itching. What happened? So Tariq winds up coming up there to the penthouse later, and him and Brayden. And I was like, wait a minute, so y'all still kicking it like that? Okay, that's kind of cool that y'all still friends and ain't let nobody, get betwist y'all. But basically Brayden lied. Brayden lied and said that, Kane wanted to see them or whatever, but he really didn't. And all of this was so that they can still get the operations to keep going. And at this point, Kane is like, I would be dumb to be seen around New York or anywhere with y'all after you didn't put it out there that Course Correct was about drugs and everything else. You know what I'm saying? And so they trying to get it together because they still, at least Brayden for sure, he's getting a rush. You know what I'm saying? He the main one that truly want to do this. And then he's doing it just because he's good at it. Tariq needs to do it because he really needs money. He told old boy he dead broke, okay? And so at this point, all of a sudden, while they going back and forth discussing this, the lights go out to the penthouse. Teddy Pendergrass came on and said, turn off the lights, turn them off. I said, oh shit, baby. When I looked up, I said, what's going on? What's happening? Y'all ain't paid the power bill. They gave y'all a penthouse and didn't even pay the power. Wow, that's messed up. Girl, next thing you know, them Africans, that's who they were. I'm pretty sure they were Africans. And baby, I'm 100% on their side. After what he said, and he didn't say them pale Americans are rude. He said, why are you pale Americans so crass? That's what he said. Because he said it again in this scene. He was like, oh, see what I mean? So crass, okay? Because they came up in there with the guns, told them to put their hands up, get down on the floor. And I said, excuse me, girl, next thing you know, Miss Girly come up in there, and then they had somebody else in there with a bag over her head. It was a woman. Baby, the way I thought that was Effie, I said, oh no, they found out about the whole crew. Because Kane said he ain't want to work with none of them, but he wanted to kick it with Effie. And then, of course, Tariq got up in his feelings and said, keep Effie's name out your mouth. And that's when the lights went out, okay? But basically, Miss Girl came up in there and was like, so I want to understand how come y'all up in here and kicking it and got Mecca's penthouse going like this. How is it that y'all up in here and Mecca dead? What happened to that? Okay? Basically, she was looking at girl. They pulled the thing off of old girl head. It was that girl that was working with Mecca. One of his lieutenants or whatever that be shooting and doing all that stuff in the other episode that we saw last season when they came in and they was taking out that gang or whatever that was in the warehouse. Yeah, it was her, Rocky. And she was like, I don't know, I swear to God. I only found out about what happened to Mecca on the news just like you did. And she was like, baby. Miss Grub was saying some more stuff. She came back to Rocky and said, so you sure? Okay. She was like, I'm dead sure, Noma. I don't know what happened. And she said, popped her in the back of the head. I said, damn. Mind you, we already knew that she was finna go because they had already started putting down like a little tarp or whatever on the floor in front of her. I said, wow, they was gonna roll her body up in there. I said, Mama, you came in there in a hooded bag and you gonna leave out in the tarp, baby. You was never coming out there alive. They popped that girl in the head. She said, you should have kept my name out your mouth, bitch. No, called her a cunt. I said, oh, you know what? Some people really, really do not like to be called a cunt. Okay? And trust and believe, I get it. Some people feel like cunt is way harsher than bitch. And in certain cases, it is. It stings a little bit more. But I feel like white girls, no shade, the white girls, they throw cunt around and they really get pissed, okay? That's they bitch. If they don't say bitch, they gonna call you a cunt in a second, But hey, it is what it is. I said, oh, Miss Noma, what's going on? Miss Noma used to be, okay, we had to break down because Kane said, bitch, who the fuck are you? And that's what old boy said. See, this is what I'm talking about. These Americans so goddamn crass. What is happening? No respect at all. So basically, Mecca was her lieutenant. Mecca was the one where they was getting their supply of drugs from. She was giving it to him because she is the main supplier. I said, oh, and not only that, but Mecca and her was engaged, and that's where the diamond came from. And he wasn't able to give it to her yet. I said, you sure about that, Miss Lady? Because Mecca was about to give that ring to Monet. To my understanding, he was trying to get her back. Like, He was playing both of y'all, girl. Don't come after Monet because Monet didn't know nothing about you. Monet wasn't about to go with him, but Monet did kill your man. But I'm just going to say that, okay? Don't come after her for that reason. Don't do it over a nigga on that type of level. If you're going to come after her on a business level. Like, you know, we up in the game together. Fuck that nigga, but you know what I'm saying? We got to get the street stuff going, you know? That type of stuff. But they was like, what? So basically, they had to convince her, lying and everything, talk about some, we'll work for you. When we was working for him, we was our, his lieutenants and all that stuff. And we got connections in government and all this or whatever in the police force. And, you know, give us a chance and we can do for you what we was doing for him and we can do it better than how he was. Girl, I said, why y'all lying like this? Tariq literally just said he dead ass broke and you sitting here lying? Girl, okay. She said, you know what? You know, the dudes was like, I feel like they lying. He was like, Noma said, you know what? They probably are, but I want to give them a chance. They look like little puppy dogs begging to do something. I said, well, they did. Okay. And, you know, basically giving them a chance. And she was like, you know what that means. You gonna have to sell her shit or she gonna kill y'all asses. And of course, they had to go over there and tell Lorenzo and Monet that, baby, do you understand? Monet is not in that headspace right about now, okay? Because like they said, like she said, I wanted to get the fuck up out of this shit. And we still here. You niggas figure it out. Because they was going back and forth. Lorenzo got the goddamn nerves to be like, I don't want to work with nobody that got any association with Mecca or whatever. I'm sitting here like, bruh, shut your mouth up. Because truth be told, we wouldn't be in this situation if it weren't for you. Well, certain situation, meaning we wouldn't have this type of Monet if it wasn't for you. Truth be told, that is what it is, okay? Because you went to jail, Monet had to take over, and then you killed her son, and now she a bitch. Like, she a bitch times 100 because she just don't care, and she got every right to at this point. And I really want her to stab him in the neck, okay? I don't understand why they got that hourglass on his neck like that, because in certain angles, it looked like a veiny dick. I said, what the fuck? It's an hourglass, but it looked like a veiny dick on his neck sometimes. I said, oh, that's a bad tattoo. Who drew that? And so, you know, they had that going on. You know, Tariq had to go over there to Davis and tell him, listen, so you done fenced that goddamn Blue Diamond. You know that couple that got killed up in the park. The lady that did that came over there to us and basically made us have to work for her. Now, let me tell you this. You're going to have to stay on standby. You're going to have to stay on staff. And I ain't paying you shit. The fact that I ain't give her your name and tell her that you was the one that sold her diamond off, you better be glad that I didn't do that. That's payment enough. And he walked the fuck up out of there. I said, all right. Meanwhile, Sax is behind the door just listening. I said, this motherfucker. What you about to do, Sax? You just irritate my soul every time I see your ass. You ain't even got to breathe. You just stand there like this. And I just can't stand it. I be like, God damn. Stop breathing so hard. I ain't even here. I just want you to stop. There you go. Okay? So the fact that Diana Tejada just got on Stansfield and she is rooming with a Weston just like Tariq was rooming with a Weston in the same room that a Weston was rooming in. Baby, this is all too convenient, but I'm going to just roll with it. And then the girl trying to act just like Braden a little bit. His sister, like, she calm, cool, she collected, she chill or whatever, but you know, she one of those people that kind of stick her foot in her mouth before she speak. And she done told Miss Gurley, I know who you are, whatever. I ain't gonna tell my mama that I'm rooming with a Tejada. You know, I know who you are. You Zeke Tejada's, Zeke Cross, I should say, cousin or whatever. I said, in reality, that's his sister. But okay, you know, and I'm just sitting here like, girl, you know a little bit too much. And then start talking about how, you know, her daddy is a convicted drug felon or whatever. And I said, well, baby, you doing too much. She was like, yeah, I Googled you. And then Miss Gurley had to say the whole thing about Braden. Okay, she said, yeah, I Googled your family as well. Since you want to Google me, I Googled your ass as well. I said, what's finna happen? Truth be told, I like Braden over the sister. Now, the sister seemed chill and naive, but sometimes those people can't be trusted because they'll slip up and do some dumb shit just because they really dumb, you know? Next thing you know, they in their new study hall. Remember last season, it was canonical studies. And You know, you had Miss Sex-a-Lot. She was there and then she got killed. I don't even remember her name. But now we got a new teacher, girl. And did y'all notice how Effie was up in the classroom? Diane was up in the classroom. Tariq was up in the classroom. Shout out to brown skin Keisha. She's still up in the classroom or whatever. Most of the people from canonical studies is in there. Mind you, it's only 30 seats, right? So some of the people, the main, like that girl with the red hair, the guy that keep going back and forth, he look a little Asian or whatever. No offense. He looked like he probably a little bit Filipino or whatever. Him and you know, brown skin Keisha always going back and forth at each other, you know. So they're there, and we got a new teacher. This is American Psych, okay, American Psyche or whatever. Professor Bennett. But did you notice how Effie was sitting over here and Tariq just came over and just sat by Diana? I guess he was just trying to take into consideration that, you know, Effie did say she didn't want to just be known as what's that girl name? What's his name? As his girlfriend. You know what I'm saying? And so I guess he just trying to give her space or just make it seem like, you know, she her own person. They don't really know each other like that. So he sit down next to Diane. They have a little conversation. Then they get into the talk. And the new teacher, the new professor come in, and it's Professor Bennett. Baby, y'all know who that is. That's Monica from Girlfriends. I said, look at Monica. Monica done came a long way. I love her stuff. But anyway, girl, they talking about perception and reality, and, you know, is the way that people perceive you your reality? Is your reality the way that it could be a perception of you and all this stuff? Back and forth, back and forth. Girl, I ain't finna go through all of that. Y'all know it's always like a deep conversation that happens in the classroom that makes you think, that ties into the title sometimes of the episode, and that's what this was. And then somehow Zeke name get brought up in there. It was like, because they said, Keisha was like, you know, people think just because my name is Keisha, whatever, that I'm ghetto and I'm not smart, but in reality, I'm smart as hell and I'm a bad bitch. And then here come Braden's sister talking about, but see, mine's is the complete opposite. People think that I'm smart, but really, I'm just a bad bitch. I said, wait a minute, girl. So you just trying to say that yourself dumb? You said it dumb, okay? Truth be told, I don't think that Braden's sister would have been able to get out in that school if it wasn't for the fact that she had that last name, okay? She just gets me dumb. Maybe, again, we talking about perception and reality. That's just the perception that I'm getting, and I feel like that's the reality as well. So it is what it is. And then they started talking about how, you know, just like Zeke has went from a basketball star to a perceived killer to being murdered or whatever. And I was waiting for Diane to speak up and say, well, no, he wasn't no killer, and I know this for sure because that was my cousin, my brother cousin or whatever. And she didn't do that. She was like, so people gonna perceive him as a killer? And they was like, yeah, until somebody come in and change the narrative. I said, Diana, you sitting right there, change the narrative. But of course she was mute. You know, of course they asked Tyreek some stuff, and Tariq said something, Effie said something, whatever. Meanwhile, Effie outside trying to mind her business, and Kane pulling up there trying to start discord up in her relationship with Tariq, trying to throw it out there saying, yo, you know Tariq working with us and we got this new business venture going on and he trying to keep you out, shorty. He trying to keep you out. Listen, whatever's going on, my man don't keep me out the loop or whatever. So whatever's happening, I already know, and it is what it is. And you know what, Kane? You can just keep going, okay? Mind your business. You don't need to be talking to me about nothing. I said, you know what, Kane? You are so messy. Granted, I know you don't like that boy, but damn, okay? But damn. You know, I truly feel like he gonna try to sleep with Effie. I'm going to still have to look out for Effie because y'all know Effie came on a little crazy, you know, and I'm slowly starting to like her a little bit. Maybe it's just the first episode, but, you know, even with the fact that she killed off Lauren, allegedly, it had to be done. It had to be done, truth be told, because you just couldn't really trust her, you know, even though you said you weren't going to do nothing with the wire or whatever, but who knows? We just don't know, you know what I'm saying? So to save our ass, mama had to go. And speaking of that, while he was out there messing around with Effie, Kane gets a text message from Braden basically saying he needed to meet. And so he tells him, hey, meeting that night at this secluded place to say that, listen, Sebastian, because when he was at work, he was in a little meeting that he was about to have, and he come up in there, Trace and 3 other dudes up in there doing cocaine. Okay, and I said, wow, it was giving very much Wolf of Wall Street. Okay, and I said, so y'all still do this? Oh boy, that offered Braden, he was like, go ahead and take this cocaine. This is what you're gonna need to do so that you can get through the day, all this pressure, whatever. He was like, I'm good. Okay, Kiki had to shut that shit down. He was like, it's better to take it than to sell it, huh? I said, oh no. And then that's when Trace had to come up and just snap on him. He was like, you better remember that the name on your check and the name on this building is Weston, so you better leave my little brother alone. Brady said, that's cute or whatever, but Trace, don't you even try to take up for me like that, okay? I said, oh, look at all of this. How do y'all get work done? You have most of the time, okay? And then you got this family rivalry and shit going on. What the fuck? I would not want to be working in no environment like that. The fact that a black woman, Miss Kiki, got some authority because when she said, shut the fuck up and wipe your nose, they did that shit. I said, all right, I like that, Miss Kiki. Next thing you know, he go out to go get the numbers or whatever that he needed for the meeting before it start. And why is Sebastian, Howard Stern, Simon Stern's ex-husband, sitting up in his chair, basically telling him the same thing that he told Tariq, threatening his ass, he need the money. And so now, at this point, this is what he met up with Kane to tell him, and basically he want Kane to take him out. He was like, listen, you took Lauren out, why do you need me to take him out? He said, I did you a favor because if it wasn't for him, if, you know, your name was on that wire, my name was on that wire, and if we don't take this man out, he gonna mess up all of us, okay? And so Kane said, okay, since you want to do it like that and you want to throw it in there like that, we're gonna both go up in there and we're gonna do it. So you got that going on. Meanwhile, while all of that is going on, them two having that conversation, we switch over there to Saxe and old girl from the DA that he fucking around with still. And I'm just like, girl, every time I see her, she stresses me out because mama look like she don't know how to have fun at all. It's like her whole life is dedicated to the job. Baby, Saxe trying to give you some dick and you don't even want it. That's a stress reliever. And I know you like his dick. I don't understand why, but you do, okay? And you ain't even want it because you were so deeply involved in this case because you got your head blown off in court. You was like, oh shit, they got me. They made me look stupid up in court. So now you trying to come back from that. You was humiliated. And now you up there trying to get Saxe to get you some information because they trying to get Davis out the paint. They trying to make it seem like Davis up here being crooked. He's still up there working with the Tejadas. He had something to do with this. He had something to do with Mecca. He had something to do with that, you know. And it was just a lie. It was just a lie. She was like, give me some evidence and then I get you some puss. And I said, wow. Because he had told her, well, listen, the only thing that I got is that he working with Tariq again because I saw them. I don't know what they were saying, but, you know, they was on the books and I wasn't there. Okay, I wasn't invited. I said, well, because look at what you're doing. Look at what you're doing. Meanwhile, you got Davis out here talking to some dude to try to get his brother into a clinical trial because he's going into liver failure because he has hepatitis B and C. And I said, damn, he really trying hard to get his brother out, but I don't think he gonna make it. They said he got like 6 months to a year left. I said, He said, whatever you gotta do, make it happen. I said, all right. So he did talk to Saxe at one point, and he wanted to tell Saxe, he said, girl, well, why did I call him girl? Somebody said in one of my reviews, they was like, Ashley, could you stop calling everybody girl? Because listen, I'm a guy, all right? I said, no, let me tell you this. When I say girl, it is literally genderless at this point because I just feel like I call everybody that. I call everybody girl, and it just comes out so randomly, so easily. I don't think about it, and it's not me trying to misgender anybody. It's just like a placeholder, like, girl, please. You know, it's just, that's just how I am, you know, so it's no offense. I know the person was joking or whatever because I know it, but, you know, I'm just wanted to explain it because I realized myself, too. I had called myself like a call. No matter if you man or woman, I will call you a girl. It just flows out so easily. But anyway, Saxe basically wanted, Davis needed to know if there was somebody telling no girl if it was somebody surveillancing Dante's apartment because, you know, it shouldn't be since Dante died, who was Mecca, like 3 months ago. But unfortunately, it is because that's what Tariq said. You know, when they had to come up in the garage, and he don't understand why they had to come up in the garage. And then once he got there, that whole situation with Noma happened, right? So you got that going on. And then Blanca brought her ass up in there. I said, what the fuck? I forgot she was supposed to be on this season. So why isn't you coming up in here trying to get into our investigation, trying to see who we got working with our informant? I said, girl, shut the fuck up. Girl, I ain't give her no chance to breathe. I said, shut up, okay? Basically, you got two women coming together who got a hard on for the St. Patrick's family, okay? Baby, they still want to get Tariq out the paint. You know, Miss D.A. lady, she won revenge because he made her look stupid on that stand in court, okay? Blanca and them, the whole family got away without being prosecuted for anything. Baby, they finna team the hell up, okay? And come to find out Dante was her informant, all right? So I said, ain't this about some stuff? They finna do an interagency, two agencies coming together project. I said, well, goddamn, this is gonna be something. Meanwhile, Tariq had went up there to talk to Bash, right? Bash, you know, kind of found out Bash stole money from Simon. That's why his ass was, you know, broke up with his ass or whatever. And he technically on the run from him. I said, oh. And so what wound up happening is he trying to get him to understand, like, you know, we can work together. I got this new venture. I want you to be sweat equity. Dude said, do it look like I sweat? And he just went in on Tariq about how you want people to make it seem like you ain't a criminal, but technically you are. You just like your father. You know, Stern told me a lot about your daddy. He ain't nothing but, you know, he was a drug dealer trying to be a politician, trying to do this or whatever. And you just like your daddy. But you just traded in your his suit, his Tom Ford suit, for a hoodie on the college campus, okay? And you know what? You just nothing but a thug. And baby, when he used that keyword thug, and he was like, and they can smell it on you. Baby, at this point, I said, Tariq, take him out. Mind you, dude was sitting there eating a steak with a steak knife. Tariq was like, you know, ain't nothing like my father. He took that steak knife and stabbed him a couple of times up in his stomach, and that was it. Mind you, Brayden and Kane outside trying to figure out how they gonna get up there and take him out. They finally get up there, and Tariq is standing there with bloody hand. I said, man, here we go. Y'all was stressing over who was gonna take the fall. I said, Tariq, pick that goddamn knife up and take it with you. Okay, take that bitch with you. Come on now. You gotta wipe down every goddamn thing up in that place, all right? And he was like, ain't nobody gonna be looking for him because people think that he already gone overseas because he stole from Stern. So they got that cleared. So just dump and incinerate the goddamn body and get the hell up out of there. That's what we need to do now. So apparently Diane had put together this memorial t-shirt, I guess like a retirement type of thing for Zeke. Ooh, excuse me. I'm so sorry. But it was basically her way of trying to get, like they said in the classroom, change the perspective and change the narrative about Zeke, okay? And then gonna have Tariq there to do the speech or whatever. Girl, all right. So while he getting ready, I said, is that really a good idea? Effie was up in there and she asked the same thing. And he was like, yeah, you know, I got to change the narrative about him and also about myself, whatever. And, you know, she asking about the whole situation about them having a new connect and everything. And he was like, the connect came to me and I ain't want you involved because, you know, I'm trying to protect you and all this stuff because everybody that's around me or whatever try to get close to me, they die. You know, I don't want you to end up like Lauren. I'm not Lauren. You're not responsible for her and all this stuff. And listen, baby, I don't need you protecting me. I can take care of myself. I said, child, all right. So we get to the school, right? We see Councilman Tate, and he got this other lady with him. And I said, ma'am, compared to what he got on looking like a councilman, and you got, yo, I'm finna go to the club after this gear on, because I just felt like that was a little bit inappropriate, her little situation for that occasion. Okay, it was cute on you, girl, but for something else, you know. And then while he was walking, and they talking about the pose and all that stuff or whatever, next thing you know, somebody bumps up into him. It's Professor Bennett, aka Miss Harper. So she bumps up into him. Apparently him and you know, Harper, they didn't know each other for a minute. It looked like they got a thing for each other, or they had a thing for each other. I got a thing for you. No, I can't sing that. He done destroyed that song now that I know what it was about. Oh, Lord. It came into handy this one, but no. But I was like, Professor Bennett, you with Rashad Tate? How does that work? She said it works perfectly fine. I said, all right. All right. They flirting in front of the lady that he with. Okay, and I'm just like, y'all kind of rude, but trying not to be rude. They gonna wind up linking up, okay? Meanwhile, you got like I said, Diana, she meeting everybody at the little stadium in the auditorium, waiting for stuff to happen or whatever. Professor Bennett has this TA, right? And Diana was sitting up in the stands or whatever, and she was crying, and he was like, you know, usually people cry after these memorial. Here come Braden's sister talking about something. I mean, that was her cousin brother. I said, shut the fuck up. And he was like, cousin brother? She said, it's a long story. And he winds up sitting there flirting with her. First of all, he looks a little bit too old to be with her, because at this point, we don't know how old Diane is. Is Diane 20 years old? Is Diane 21? Is Diane 18, 19? Girl, what is her age? Is she 25? Diane looked like she could be from 18 to 30. I just don't know what she is, okay? But meanwhile, you know, they got the stuff that about to happen, and they have Lil Mo come up there to sing. I said, what? All right, Lil Mo. Girl, I ain't seen you in a minute. I ain't seen Lil Mo since she was with that man that had all them kids that wanted to be a boxer and they broke up. You know, moving on from that, thank God you out that situation, because that was trifling. But she got up there and sang her wig off, okay? I said, all right, Lil Mo, you still got the voice. And they gave, you know, Zeke's jersey to Monet. Monet still ain't feeling Diane, because Diane looked at her ass. That's why she started crying, because Diane didn't even barely, she looked at her, and Monet barely acknowledged her ass. I ain't even mad, because Diane got on my nerves last season. But, you know, she got the jersey. Monet couldn't even sit there that long. She had to get up, and she had to go in the corner and cry by herself outside. I felt bad for Monet. I said, oh, that's your firstborn. Oh, that's so sad. Oh, you know. Meanwhile, while she over there doing that, baby, Tariq get up there and do his little speech, right? And let me tell you something, I got a little misty eye, because when they had Monet standing up in that corner crying like I'm going down because you not around, and they threw a whole montage of Mr. Zeke, and I was like, I'm gonna miss your little goofy self. He did bring a little something to the show, and we ain't gonna have that. Meanwhile, when Lil Mo get through talking, Tariq get up there trying to give a little speech, trying to basically turn the narrative about Zeke's character, about how he was such a good friend. He's a brother, he's a cousin, he's a son, he's all of this, and he was a good friend, he was a good basketball player, and, you know, they tried to ruin his reputation when people tried to say that he was a killer, and even when the DA cleared him of all the charges, people was trying to say that he still did it or whatever, and he almost missed his NBA chance. I said, well, he didn't miss it now because he did. And then he was like, just like they tried to do me, and then dude in the audience was like, but you did it though. And he said, see, that's exactly what I'm talking about. Let me just tell you this, I'm not guilty of nothing, okay? And I want to be able to come on this campus and show y'all and prove to y'all that I'm not. I said, excuse me, goddamn Tariq. This ain't about you. I said, now see, I understand this. This is why you were so eager to get up here and do this, because you wanted it to use it for a double purpose. You wanted it to use it to, make it seem like you wanted to change Zeke's reputation and also to change your perception, people's perception of you. But baby, truth be told, once certain stuff is out there, people ain't gonna change it, okay? They're still gonna believe whatever it is that they're gonna believe. And I just really did not like the fact that he took this opportunity and took the focus off of Zeke to put it on himself. I said, sir, sit your ass down, okay? Meanwhile, you are a killer. I'm saying the way that they did that montage of all the people that he done killed from Power to now, I said, damn, he got bodies on him. Like bodies. Baby, you almost up in the double digits. Okay. Tariq, you'll never get past the fact that you killed your daddy. Ain't nobody barely clap. It took Effie to start clapping for him after the speech for everybody else to do it. And mostly everybody didn't do it. But I do like the fact that he went over there and he saw Monet crying. He talked to her, said, girl, what's going on? How you doing? Baby, I'm crying. What you think I'm doing? And so she was like, let me just tell you this. You know what? You was with me when all of this stuff went down with Zeke. So at this point, you the only one that I can trust. Because he was like, what you need me to do? She said, I need you to find out what happened. Because, Lorenzo say he gonna find out. But he been dragging his ass, okay? And he ain't got me nothing. And so I know you be knowing stuff. You mean to tell me you don't know nothing? He was like, I don't know nothing, Monet, but I swear to God, if I know something, I'll be telling you first. She said, yeah, you find out whatever it is you need to find out. And if you find out something for real, you tell me first. Baby, why Lorenzo walked past just looking? I said, yeah, sir, that's what you get. And I said, Lorenzo, please don't try to take Tariq out because it ain't going to be his funeral. It's going to be yours, okay? Meanwhile, that white man detective that got on our nerves last season, he's back because Blanca had showed him Miss DA lady a picture about the fact that he was out there taking pictures of Dante's penthouse of who's coming in and going out. And so Miss DA lady had to tell him, nigga, you on confinement, okay? You supposed to be confined to the desk, all right? You are not, hold on. You are not on this case, okay? Ever since Milgram killed herself, he said, she didn't kill herself. You know that. You really think that she killed herself? And was like, with Lori, and you really think that she died in a car accident? Baby, at this point, I'm sitting here like, I just need you to go, okay? I did not want him to come back. But he's doing the absolute most as he was last season, and now it's in reverse because he feels guilty for Milgram being dead because of the fact that he put so much pressure on her and he had it 100% wrong about her, and so now he's feeling guilty and he want to go after the people that really did it. I want to go after Monet. I said, Monet gonna kill you. She's a grieving mother. There's no other pain that's greater than a grieving mother right about now, okay? And I feel like she's going to take your ass out, and I want to see that happen. Meanwhile, the crew, including Effie, they go down there to Mecca's warehouse, and they said, Noma Man said, you said you can move his stuff. Well, this is all his stuff. And if I come back and I see that you lied, you gonna get dealt with. They looking like, well, damn, bitch, how the fuck we gonna move all of this? And then Effie talking about something, you sure we need to bring the Tejadas and them up in this? Bitch, what else we gonna do? What else we gonna do? Y'all got a big ass warehouse full of goddamn inventory that y'all need to move ASAP. Girl, you on a deadline. Ain't nobody asking questions now. Just go ahead and get that thing out. But baby, the gag is this. The reason why Miss DA lady is telling Mr. Detective Annoyance to just leave this stuff alone, especially with the Lauren situation, is because Lauren is not even dead, bitch. Lauren is staying at her house. It looked like a lake house or whatever that she used to grow up in, because I seen a whole bunch of pictures up in there. She walk up in there, there's a whole bunch of security and everything. She looking out the window and she gonna say, how long do I have to play dead? I said, what the fuck is going on? See, no wonder why you ain't on the Oval. Girl, I know you, that's right. You said, girl, I'm gonna keep this job. I know that's right, Paige. You do what you gotta do, girl. But, yeah, this was cute. This was cute. For opener, it wasn't too much. It was just enough to whet the appetite just a little bit to get into what we're gonna be getting to for the season. I always, you know, I really will tell you this. I remember when Power went off. And I was like, when I found out that they was going to do a spinoff with Tariq, I said, girl, don't nobody want to watch Tariq because Tariq pissed us off so bad in Power towards the last couple of seasons or whatever. He just pissed us off so goddamn bad. We was like, kill that motherfucker, kill that motherfucker, kill him. But, you know, when the seasons came on, I was like, oh, okay. I get it. I get it. So I'm intrigued. I'm intrigued. I'm going to stick it out. Y'all already know that. But y'all tell me how y'all feel about it. And let me tell you what the schedule going to be. You will either get the review on Saturday night or, well, sometimes Saturday. I ain't even going to say Saturday night. You'll probably get it on Saturday or you'll get it on Sunday morning. Sunday afternoon. One of those two. Okay, so you don't need to ask if I'm going to review. You don't need to ask when it's going to be uploaded. Just look out for it either Saturday or Sunday. Just know that, all right? And I will see you guys later. I still got to watch Love and Marriage DC. I'm dropping that show next season. Anyway, y'all tell me how y'all feel. I'll see y'all later. Peace.